Well, the judge presiding over Donald Trump's election interference case issued a gag order on the former president.
Yeah, this as Donald Trump is expected to be back in court today as his civil fraud trial resumes. Fox 5's Robert Moses joins us from outside criminal court in Lower Manhattan with the very latest. And Robert, the former president is expected to actually be there today, right?
That's right, Dan and Tashani, good morning to you. Donald Trump arrived at Trump Tower last night, and he is expected to make his way here to State Supreme Court later on today. He doesn't have to be here at this point in the trial, but he says he wants to be, to witness a case that he says never should have been brought. Former President Donald Trump is expected back in the courtroom for his civil fraud trial today, though the day will lack some of its anticipated drama. The former president's longtime fixer turned critic, Michael Cohen, was supposed to testify today, which would have set up a courtroom confrontation full of intrigue, but Cohen had to postpone his testimony because of a medical issue. Yesterday, Judge Arthur Engoron said the earliest Cohen could now testify is Monday. The former president is expected in the courtroom today, tomorrow, and Thursday. His plans for next week are not yet known. Attorney General Letitia James sued him, the Trump Organization, and his two adult sons, among others, claiming they inflated the value of properties like Trump Tower and Mar-a-Lago to secure better loan terms. She wants the defendants to be prevented from doing business in New York and is seeking a fine of $250 million. Engoron, who is presiding over this non-jury trial, will decide whether to levy those penalties. When the former president attended the first 3 days of his trial earlier this month, he excoriated James and Engoron, both Democrats.
This is election interference. They made up a fake case.
The former president drew Engoron's ire earlier this month when he posted on Truth Social a picture of Engoron's law clerk with Senator Chuck Schumer and called her Schumer's girlfriend. Engoron promptly imposed a limited gag order preventing trial participants from criticizing members of his staff and told the former president to delete the post. Speaking of gag orders, a different judge imposed one yesterday in a different case involving former President Trump. Judge Tanya Chutkan, who's presiding over his federal criminal case involving efforts to reverse the 2020 election results, issued the limited gag order in that case. Chutkan ordered the former president not to attack witnesses, some prosecutors, and court staffers. Chutkan says he can criticize President Joe Biden and the Justice Department. At a campaign stop in Iowa, former President Trump did not sound satisfied as he overstated the gag order's scope.
Do you believe this? I'm not allowed to criticize people, so we'll see. We'll appeal it, and we'll see. But it's so unconstitutional.
And the former president is also scheduled today to give a video deposition in a lawsuit against the Justice Department brought by former FBI officials Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. You may remember that Strzok and Page claimed that the former president influenced their departures from the FBI. Both of them were involved in probes involving President Trump back in 2016 and 2017. Strzok was fired. Page stepped down. Again, that lawsuit continues, and the former president scheduled to give his deposition in that case today. We're live in Lower Manhattan this morning. Dan and Tashani, back to you.
A lot going on there, Robert. Thanks for breaking it all down for us.